Hello from Greece. My name is Sophia, and I'll tell you about the mistake I made that led to my parents' divorce. Knock, knock. I heard a knock on the door, so I went to it and saw a young man there. At first, he just looked at me for a long time and then asked if Ava Petro lived there. When I asked him why he needed my mother, he replied that he came on business and needed to contact her urgently. Since my parents weren't at home, I offered for him to call her on her cell phone and gave him her number. And from that moment on, chaos began in our family. In the evening, my mother returned home in tears, and my father was angry. Furious shouts came from the bedroom, and in the morning, my mother and her things were gone. Nobody explained anything to me or told me anything. My father withdrew into himself and hired an old nanny for me. Whenever I asked my dad any questions, he turned away and left or tried to avoid any contact altogether. So what happened? Why did they quarrel so much that they got divorced right away? The thought was suggested to me by my friend Leah. She suggested that it might have been the fault of that man who came to the door. I had no idea, but I was sure that it wasn't that. I had to go around half the city to find her. I went to all my mother's favorite places, but I didn't see her anywhere. She wasn't responding to my calls or messages either. Honestly, it hurt me a lot. Nevertheless, I was determined to find her to get her to answer one question. Why? That day I ran to Leah's house. She'd asked me to bring pizza and coffee from the cafe, and on the way there, you won't believe it, I saw that same guy who came to our house. He and my mother were holding hands. My heart started beating so fast. He stood up from the table, and I saw that he was wearing an apron. So he worked there as a waiter? Basically, my mother traded my father and I for a waiter from a cafe? At that moment, I decided to make him pay for all the pain and misery he brought into our home. One day, disguised, I went to that cafe and sat near my mother's table. She was a frequent visitor of the establishment, and I heard her say, "I love you, remember that. What about your husband and daughter? I'll sort everything out. Right now, you're the most important thing to me, my dear." Holding back tears, I waited for her to leave. I watched the tables that jerk was serving, and, unnoticed, I replaced the salt with sugar for one of the clients in a business suit, tripping him as he walked by, which caused him to fall onto another man. The little revenge I got was short-lived. Just a few days later, my mother came there in her new car and gave the keys to her lover. Can you imagine it? She even supported him. She hadn't even called me once that month. I was such a fool to give him her number. While my father and I never talked, these two communicated perfectly, smiling and laughing. It was so unfair. To distract me, Leah suggested we take a ride around the city. We accidentally ended up on that same street where that cafe was, to avoid traffic on another one. Across from the establishment, I noticed my mother's boyfriend getting out of the car that she gave him. And he wasn't alone. He was with another girl. Leah, that jerk has another girlfriend. I hate him. Follow them. We have to keep eyes on them. They got back into the car and headed toward the cinema. My friend and I, hiding in the crowd, bought tickets for a different row, higher up, and entered the theater behind them. Then he kissed her. Ugh! I already wanted to hit him and her. Then my mother called me during the movie. I trembled and Leah tried to calm me down, but nothing special. My mother just asked me where the keys to the garage were because she wanted to pick up the rest of her things. So, is that all you care about right now? I'm sorry, I'm so busy. Let's talk later. My mother hung up, and at that moment, that girl started kissing my mom's boyfriend. I grabbed someone else's popcorn, threw it at them, and poured juice all over her. They screamed in anger and shock. The four of us went outside, but he didn't even have time to say anything to me. I was so angry that I grabbed a stone and threw it at his car, smashing the windshield. Are you sick? What did you call me? Are you sick? I'll call the police. Go ahead, I shouted and grabbed her hair. Anyway, an hour later, Mom and Dad arrived at the police station. Mom asked what was going on, and seeing that her boyfriend's girlfriend was sitting here and Mom didn't even react, I exploded. Don't you see that he came here with his mistress? Are you so in love with him that you don't even notice these things? What are you talking about? Honey, you've misunderstood everything. How did I misunderstand? You don't even talk to me. You all ignore me. Everyone only cares about themselves, and what's happening to me is only interesting to Leah. He's your mom's son, your older stepbrother. What? There was a pause. It turns out that this was Mom's first child after divorcing her ex-husband. She then left with her son to her ex-mother-in-law and married Dad. Many years later, he found her and Mom wanted him to live with us, but Dad was against it, so they decided to break up. In the end, both I and his girlfriend suffered. Well, it's been a month since then. Dad seems to have decided to give in and try to make friends with him. As for me, he seems like a normal guy. I immediately thought he was good, but Leia didn't believe me.
You're drawing too much attention to yourself. You should never show your face to people. You are my family curse.
My father shouted at me. I am Elena, and as my father said, I'm too beautiful, which creates a lot of problems for the family. It brings losses and nothing more. Since childhood, I have been distinguished from other children by my special beauty. My face attracted attention like a magnet. Once, when people crowded around my stroller to take a closer look, my father's wallet was stolen with almost his entire salary. He was just beside himself with anger. Dad always said that my mother caused him the same problems, so she ran away and left me with him, and now he has to pay for their daughter.
Oh God, forgive my sins and this child. She was born such a sinner.
My father always said, calling out to heaven. He handed me a mask and glasses every day and ordered me to walk without taking them off, and made me constantly pray in order to atone for my sins of appearance. So I did, sincerely believing that I brought only trouble. One day I decided to skip church service simply because I saw free cupcake baking classes at the bakery. I wondered what they would do there. I immediately called my new friend, May, who I'd just met, to come with me. We baked cupcakes together and laughed. Doesn't my mask and glasses bother you? No, what's wrong with that? It's fun with you. Her laugh was contagious. Time passed unnoticed when suddenly I looked out the window and saw my angry father standing there. Dad punished me back at home, making me pray for several hours in a row on my knees. It was terrible. Dad prayed very loudly, asking God to forgive him for his naughty daughter.
All my troubles come from you. Even wearing a mask, you managed to succumb to temptation and be the center of attention,
he yelled. He then added that now our family was waiting for punishment, and God didn't make us wait long. Not long after, people came to kick us out of the house. I didn't understand why, because we did pay our bills. We had nowhere to go, so the church sheltered us. My dad was well known there, and so was I. One day I packed our things and went down to the laundromat, but on the way I ran into someone. Oh my God, he was such a handsome guy. He was there with his laundry too. We smiled at each other, and then I realized I wasn't wearing my mask and glasses. Oh no! The guy helped me up as I fell, and then he said, "You're so beautiful."
I'm Dylan. What's your name?
Me? My name is
Milena, what are you doing here? Where is your mask?
Dad screamed and kicked the guy away and handed me my mask.
What did I tell you about your face? Don't show it to anyone until you've been forgiven for your sins. Why, God, why?
I covered my face in tears, and my father left for church. He ordered me to finish the laundry, and I saw May at the laundromat. What are you doing here? Is your father jealous of your beauty? I saw what happened outside. No, what are you... It's just, I'm cursed. That's all. How is your beautiful face related to a curse? Well, because of me, people steal money from my dad. They recently kicked us out of the house. Do you really think it's about you? Really, it is. Every time I get attention, something bad happens to my father. Can't this be disproven? How? May grabbed my hand and quickly ran. We ended up in the church hall where the service was still going on. She pushed me out there and took off my mask, and people froze. Everyone began to whisper about my beauty, and one woman said, "What a beautiful child! She's like an angel!" Among the crowd, I saw my father's angry face. That night, he locked me in my bedroom until late in the evening. Through the door, I yelled at May, blaming her for everything. "I just want to prove that it's not about you, Milena," she said. "How do you know? And how did you know where we go to church? Who are you?" She didn't answer. That evening, Dad told me to go and pray, ask for forgiveness for my misdeeds. While praying, I made an important decision that would change my life once and for all. The next day, I was already sitting in the office of a plastic surgeon, asking him to make me ugly. At first, he laughed, but then he agreed to do it for free, considering my offer interesting. I had already entered the operating room when May came in. "Let's go," she said. What? Why are you here? Faster, faster! I'll prove that you're not cursed! So she grabbed my arm and pulled me out of there by force. We then went to a strange private club. I went downstairs with May and saw my father sitting at a computer making online bets in the casino. What? Your father is a gambler. There's nothing to do with your face and a curse. He just squanders everything he earns. How did you know all this? Who are you anyway, May? I'm the priest's daughter. My father knew everything for a long time. I made him tell me before you could do something to harm yourself. So that's how the truth came out. I am not cursed. After saying goodbye to the mask, we talked to my father and the priest. Dad was ashamed and he apologized, promising to quit with the gambling. Well, and that guy Dylan, we began to talk again, and everything seems to be fine.